Our next speaker will be Sally Carbon. Sally was a sporty kid who ended up playing hockey for Australia at 2 World Cups and 2 Olympic Games. She's now a fellow of the Australian Institute of Company Directors and sits on a range of boards. Sally runs her own business strategy company, G11, where she mentors many who are transitioning from sport. Sally unapologetically assists leading-edge international, national, government and private leaders how to strategically organise themselves for growth. I am delighted this morning to welcome Sally Carbon to the stage.
Kaya. Nagalat Kajing Nagalang Menang Mort Wirin of 25,000 years ago to today. We acknowledge our Menang's family spirit of 25,000 years ago to today. Thank you for having me on your land from Wajak country. Very, very nice to travel down to Albany yesterday afternoon. Now, is that a way at the back because you can't hear, or is that a way because you're being friendly with each other? You all good? Give us a thumbs up if you're all good. They can't hear. Taking things into my own hands. Is that better? Okay, here we go. So it is a pleasure to be here with you today on International Women's Day in Albany. I get asked to go to International Women's Day a year in advance. Good work.
Thank you.
1 year in advance, that's good planning. I get invited probably 19, 20 different ones, and I'm so happy to be out of Perth and in Albany this year. So thank you very much for having me. I'm grateful to stand here and have a yarn with you all. May I please prepare you for at the end of this to ask me anything, absolutely anything. And if you don't, I might pick on you because I am a board chair and I'm very good at that. I wish for all people all over the world to be counted in equally. I wish WA didn't have high domestic violence figures. I wish gender equity pay gaps were a thing of the past. And I wish for health and happiness for all. But of course, we need to agitate a little at times for those wishes to come true. I'll agitate a little today. I'm 4 weeks shy of 57 years old. Thus, I have 57 years of stories to drop today. A big story started when I was 5 in the early 70s, when the then East German gymnastics recruiter toured through City Beach. At that time, and for the next 30 years, City Beach and surrounding suburbs produced more Olympic gold medalists than anywhere in the world. That statistic scientifically boiled down to opportunity, sunshine and space, as later released by the Australian Sports Commission, of which I was a commissioner later on. That East German recruiter, before the famous wall came down, asked my folks if I could relocate to the Eastern Bloc to train in the gymnastics program. Of course, it was a no. Or for those people my age who grew up with Hogan's Hero, it was a 9. Yeah, good work, someone got it. However, it was an indicator that I was an athletic little sod. I was also a ballet dancer, and at 12, I was asked to leave Perth to go to Sydney to join the Australian Ballet Academy. That was a 9 again. At 13, I ran at the National Athletics Championships in the 400 metres and the 400 metres mongrel hurdles, and I should have said 9 to that one. At 14, I was in the state hockey team. In the same year, announced in the Australian under-16 celebratory team. At 17, captained the under-19 WA hockey team, and at 18, captained the under-21 state team. Was put in the Open Australian squad, now called the Hockey Roos, before I cracked the WA team. And well, the rest is history. I was so fortunate to be part of the WA winning state team at the Nationals because we won 9 out of 11 Nationals over those 11 years, the most celebrated regional sporting team in the world of any sport. Also, in the history-making Hockey Roos at the same time, where we were the most winning country sporting team in any sport, anywhere in the world, still to this day. But remember, I was counted in because I was raised in City Beach. Opportunity, sunshine, and space. Yes, I was athletic. Yes, I worked hard, but I am extremely grateful for the opportunity provided to me. Imagine if everyone had that opportunity, if everyone was counted in. I had the opportunity to go to university. I was counted in. I completed a double major whilst going to the Olympics, anatomy and physiology, and also mathematics. I love my numbers. It certainly helps me to chair a $500 million company today. Regarding anatomy and physiology, I had and have a great interest in helping a human to perform. I have huge respect for diversity and inclusion, particularly gender differences and similarities. Across Europe, we function with 40-40-20 mentality. That is 40% male, 40% female, and 20% they or those who don't wish to differentiate. The ASX, did you hear what I just said? The ASX, not those two letters joined together. The ASX corporate governance recommendations were released last week. Any ASX company must strive now in Australia for 40-40-20. 50-50 is now assumed and past tense. This shift has ramifications. For my love of the human form, taking the biological positioning in this particular case, do you know that male and female human form is 98.5% the same? That means only 1.5% impact of the XX and XY biological elements. We are not from Mars and Venus after all. This means men have thicker skin, more muscles, denser bones, tendons and ligaments, but men fatigue quicker than women. Of course, women need more iron due to the menstrual blood loss. Men have more grey matter and women have more white matter. The white matter is about sensory messaging. The grey matter is more of a physical response and a physical need. Our estrogen levels make us more maternal. Men's testosterone more aggressive and territorial. Men's fuel comes from carbohydrates, women mostly from fat, fortunately. Our circadian rhythms are different. We go to sleep earlier than men. Yay. And we also survive with a better sleep deprivation. Resting heart rates are different. Women have lower blood pressure and men are not as sensitive to cold. Funnily enough, women have a greater sense of smell and more powerful taste buds, but men's sense of movement is better, yet they're more likely to be colourblind. And my favourite one, I'm going to test you all on. If you hold up your hand in front of you, if you, as a female, for those females in here, consider themselves biologically female, if your pointer finger is your second longest finger, raise your hand. So you point a finger, raise your hand. You can't tell. Yeah. A good bulk of you. You're all working it out. Women are supposed to have their second finger. The second longest finger is their pointer finger. The male, biologically, the ring finger is longer. I reckon about 60% of us were in the case. Just that lost you. But remember, we are 98.5% the same. So why have we for generations treated our genders differently? Nature versus nurture. Imagine if everyone had the opportunity, if everyone was counted in. I was first placed on a board when I was 22 years of age. That was a state government board. I received a scholarship to complete the company director's course not long after by a CPA. Yes, I like my numbers. And I've since been on 15 boards, from private, not-for-profit advisory boards to government boards and authorities across Western Australia, and also one across Southeast Asia. In the eastern states, it is better than it is here in WA, more advanced with gender equity. They seem more settled, that we are all considered equal. Meryl Streep's "The World Speaks Men" came to the forefront. This, I have only ever once, big call, I've only ever once really experienced any form of bullying from a man. In this particular case, I sacked him. It was a good learning experience for me, and I have a better understanding of what other women go through because of this experience. Imagine if everyone had the opportunity to sack the offender, if everyone was counted in. I was given the opportunity to lead at 22 through this board role, but it was definitely a man's world back then. Now, our Generation Zs, who are in the room today, embrace all forms of gender fluidity. Gen Z's big topics worldwide are to fight against climate change, fight against income inequalities, and celebrate, not fight against, gender differences. Gen Zers, the 12 to 27-year-olds, are the most educated generation in the workforce globally. As chair of St John WA, as you heard, a $500 million turnover, near 10,000 team members, 17 different services across the full state of Western Australia, we have more Gen Zers than any other generation within a 5-generation workforce. So count them in big time. They demand diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Who would believe globally that Gen Zers are demonstrating that, told you I'm going to agitate, feminism has gone too far. Global research led by none other than Julia Gillard through the Global Institute for Women's Leadership at both King's College in London and also the Australian National University here in Australia, in Canberra, is driving youth-centred approach to gender balances in the workforce. They are being counted in. You are being counted in. Girls still feel unsafe, harassed, yet have united views to young boys about gender equity. Boys are insecure about their bodies and expectations sexually, and together they both want healthy relationships with the same or opposite sexes. In fact, just this week, Julia Gillard stated from London for International Women's Day, women have more tools at their disposal so they can sack people, to deal with sexism in 2024, along with great solidarity with each other, like today. However, she flagged a disturbing trend born out of upcoming the Global Institute of Women's Leadership research, which showed young men were increasingly expressing sentiments like, efforts for gender equity have gone too far. She is predicting a kickback, and we are seeing that in many countries which are reversing women's growth and plights. Must think about it. Although not changing quick enough here for most of our likings in Australia, that ASX report that is appointing female leaders as CEOs is actually changing the language in Australian workplaces, as is how we speak in the workplace. Therefore, the numbers of females in leadership's role is not the end game. It's not about quotas being the gold medal. It's a tool to reach the end game. The more leaders that we have who speak women or woman will move the dial to a more gender-balanced environment. Therefore, me, as the first female chair of a 132-year-old organisation, first one, I am a woman. I lead like a woman. I am bringing a woman's language, and I'm systematically changing St John WA, and that is completely A-OK. In the workplace, according to that global research, women score significantly higher on all 5 creative dimensions. There's only 5. Women score higher on all 5 creative dimensions. So important when we've got this freight train of AI coming our way, which the only thing that AI is not as good as the human on is creative dimensions and empathy, which we've heard about today as well. And women have a play for all to win mentality, whereas men traditionally have been forged by a play not to lose dimension. We have that different nature. Imagine if everyone had that opportunity to be led by a woman to systematically alter the leadership languages in the workplace. So how does Australia rank for female leadership? Based on the number of female entrepreneurs, and I know there's a lot in the room, the number of females in universities and the number of females in Parliament, Australia ranks 50th out of 156 countries. I think we can do better. Sweden, Iceland, Norway, Slovenia and France take out the top 5 spots. In Parliament, Australia has 44% female representatives. Remember though, Europe is leading the 40-40-20 ruling. They've moved on from 50-50. So how does St John WA go with female leaderships? We have a workforce of 51% female, 49% male. We don't know the non-described or non-descriptive gender at this point in time because we haven't got to the stage of trust where people can say so, of both paid and volunteer team members. We have exactly the same leadership roles of males and females. We have 4 female board members and 4 male board members, varying age groups. We've even gone quite young in one, which you can probably understand why due to my history. However, this week was the first week that any company with more than 100 team members had to release their Gender Equity Amendment Bill, gender income remuneration changes. Has anyone in this room got 100 team members and had to release that gap? No. As I said, we've got 10,000, so we're a bit over 100. The gap, the better, if you're closer to 0%, the better your company is, which means there's no gap between male and female remuneration. The worst companies sit around 30% gap. There's only 10% of those companies that release the information sit in that gap. St John WA has a 30% gap. This is the first time this information by law had to come through the board. It's 1 week old. You can imagine I'm all over it like a rash. Rio Tinto, one of your partners here, has a plus score. It's one of the only ones across Australia that I've seen. So that means they're paying their females more than the men. Good on you, Rio Tinto. Well done. It takes a lot of effort. There's a template to fill in. It's not just a matter of sitting listing everything. It's quite complicated, but it does demonstrate, and it's very overt now, how we can do better. So imagine if everyone had that opportunity to correct gender equity balances. I feel honoured to have this role. I recall up until recently, when I have certainly asserted my own authority, I used to speak men myself. I can remember being cuddled by a man up on stage like this, and with a statement such as, "It's all right, she's one of us." And I used to think that was normal. If this happened today, I'd probably get my guns out, bicep 1 and bicep 2. Heading off to the Seoul Olympics again in 1988, it was time of much political and student unrest in the host city. Bombs were going off. It was a dangerous time. In Perth, we trained at the Perth Hockey Stadium at Curtin University, and on rocking up to training at 5:45, like we did every morning, we were whisked away on a bus with no knowledge whatsoever of what was going on. We drove all the way out to Scarborough and turned around and came back, and 2 federal police cars pulled us over under lights and sirens. They spoke in a made-up language, emulating the language in Korea and Seoul, and ordered us off the bus. True story. They threw our hockey bags off, not roughly, but messily, and used mirrors under the bus to check for bombs. They told us to empty our bags. They went through them. They fully patted us down to intimidate us. All in all, it took 35 minutes until we were packed on the bus again. At this point, the psychologist told us that we were now late for our Olympic match and had to warm up on the bus. We did. We stretched on the bus. Then we returned to the Perth Hockey Stadium, ready for our rehearsal match. Same thing. We were leaving for Seoul. En route, we stopped off at Darwin for a week to acclimatise. The same psychologist organised 150 Darwin men, fed them barbecue and beer, and told them to yell at us over the fence. I pushed the short corner out, so I most of the time was at least no more than 1 metre away from these barbecue and beard Darwin men, legs astride, of course. I copped my fair share. These 2 incidents and much more added up to being completely prepared for the Olympics. Versus Korea, host nation, for a gold or a silver Olympic medal match, the team bus didn't turn up. It's so scheduled at Olympics. The team bus did not turn up. We got on the public bus from the Olympic Village with other athletes going to watch our game and warmed up on the bus. And yes, we won a gold medal. We were so rehearsed. Imagine if everyone had that opportunity to rehearse to be a better performing person. Success is in our control. We are to take action and make change. We need to be conscious of speaking women, of walking and talking women. How do we do that? Nowadays, I take extreme accountability. That is never failing into the trap of searching for blame. I always look in the mirror and think about what I could have done differently to make a different outcome. And I rehearse that outcome so I'm confident with how I'd react the next time. I rehearse with what is speaking woman. I read a lot to search for numbers. I form my own views. I rehearse and get real. And I provide others with opportunity, and I commit to take such action. Regardless of my own or anyone else's political views, I read about Julia Gillard and her role today versus her role as the country's Prime Minister. She's now a global leader of female matters. Bloody good on her. I see pictures of her in Parliament back in the Prime Minister days being treated bloody awfully by men and some women in politics. Her famous line pointing to the then leader of the opposition in her 2012 parliamentary speech, in which she declared, "I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man," and directed at the then opposition Tony Abbott, has been hailed as a history-making and absolute globally all over the internet speech. She says, "Good sense, common sense, proper process is what should rule this parliament." Imagine if Parliament was to the standards that we expect. It's a big flaw in our community, I believe. And she said, "That's what I believe in, is the path forward for this Parliament, not the kind of double standards and political game playing imposed by the leader of the opposition, now looking at his watch because apparently a woman's spoken too long." As I said, this speech is in the top 10 speeches across the world today. I'm angry with the way she was treated. I wish our country's politicians would take that quantum step forward up on behaviour, especially to women as role models for all. Imagine if everyone had the opportunity to walk and talk with such authority as Julia Gillard. And whilst I'm holding the authority as the chair of St John WA, I have the honest honour of letting you Albany people know that just last week, the board made the biggest investment decision in my time for the brand new Albany sub-centre. Biggest ever. It is hugely, it is absolutely a huge new facility. The architect's about to be announced, and Marnie, it is fully accessible. It's the first time, in fact, we're retrofitting accessibility across 162 facilities across WA. And Emma, there's quiet room galore through it. There's padded quiet rooms for people can go and meditate. It's absolutely state of the art. So it's a very good movement forward, and it's going to be an absolute beacon, and it's happening here in Albany. Sanford Road location, does anyone know? Yeah. It's coming. You know what buildings like? Don't hold your breath, but it'll come. Imagine if everyone had the opportunity to make decisions for the care of people in a community. As the chair leading this decision making, I'm so very grateful. TED Talks, 15 to 18 minutes only. Apparently, we tune off after that. Oh, I'm watching. And that tuning off is demonstrated in body language. Oh, look at you all go. Very good. Michelle Obama famously speaks for 14 minutes and then stops. At the 11 and a half mark, she makes people cry. Well, she says something emotive anyway. You have heard that I grew up in opportunity-filled City Beach. Well, at 14, Dad got a job as one of the leaders of Alcoa. Within 2 weeks, we shifted from safe, pretty pink City Beach to not safe, black Mandurah High School. Jeepers. For me, that was like the story of Greece happening in front of my eyes. On day one, being pretty in pink not having a school uniform, which was the tight blue pencil skirt split up to thigh, and yellow school shirt rolled up high on the shoulders, typically with a cigarette packet in the shoulder, I had a bunch of tough girls follow me around the school with a water divining stick, pointing to my rear end with the chant going, "Virgin finder, virgin finder." Did I have to find some grit and find it fast? Same grit was found when we hockey players were making a quantum shift from being pretty damn and flashy hockey players to being the best in the world. Sure talent, sure hard work, but the biggest change for us came from teaching us to take up physical presence. May I ask you, now that I've gone over the 15-minute mark, to scan your body language right now. Are your shoulders back? Is your chin slotted in? Is your chest pointing to the sky? According to tradition, women hold a protective positioning around their heart. Well, don't. We hockeyroos were taught to walk past the kookaburras as though we were the best in the world. When we rehearsed against men wearing international team clothing to show our authority, not that we played the men, but according to our self-assessment at that time, 30 plus years ago, we cared more about what the Dutch and the German men thought of us than how we played hockey. We corrected all of this through fully dressed rehearsals, increasing our body language with poise and grit, walking up and down the race of the Perth Hockey Stadium many times, rehearsing that body language. Fortunately, this is changing, but the biggest impediment to girls playing sport in their teens is what they have to wear. If we really think about it, why did young boys wear shorts to sport and young girls wear a skirt or a dress? Remember, we're only 98.5% the same. We grew up as hockeyroos. We were trying to be the best in the world, but silly, also trying to be the most attractive and bigger and better for the male hockey teams in the world. Stupid. Thankfully, this is not the case anymore. We got more money than hockeyroos in our era because we were ranked higher. They shrunk in posture during this era. If we treat someone lower, they shrink. Male, female, older, younger, different physical abilities, different geographical backgrounds, they shrink. And this is why our Gen Zers are so into diversity and inclusion. Imagine if everyone had that opportunity to point their heart to the sun. So I've gone past the TED time for a good speech. I didn't make you cry at the 11.5-minute mark like Michelle Obama can, but I hope I stirred you up like Julia Gillard did in Parliament in the year 2012. I wish to raise the notion that building a more gender-balanced community is not for the benefit of us as individual women. It's for the benefit of our communities. More female leaders is not an end game or a quota result. It is a tool for change, and that systemising will mean that we don't talk men anymore. We open our minds to the value of diversity and inclusion. More support from one person to another so we can remind each other to walk and talk proud is really worthwhile. With our hearts to the sun, including for the young men with our sad societal suicidal rates. Less gender imbalance as it's gender equality that sets the underlying context for violence against women, with WA being the worst domestic violence state in Australia. And increased faster female leadership in a world being turned around through AI, with female traits of creativity, empathy, and long-range vision being so, so important. Women's skills are becoming more important. And let's listen and help and trust our Gen Zers, as it's their world now to forge. I'm grateful for my journey thus far, and even though I'm 57, I'm going to keep on having a red hot crack. Thank you, Albany and the surrounding areas, for having me, and I'll now throw over to you for some questions if you have time. Make it a juicy one, Kristen.
I hope to. Thank you, Sally. That was incredible, and I really appreciate that you had the opportunity to come down and taken the opportunity to come down.
Me too. Love it. Thank you.
Yeah. I have a question. In all of your leadership roles, has there been an opportunity that you've had to count her in, or take that kind of position of? You mentioned on St John's, you've got someone who's young, starting out their board career. But can you give us some examples of what you've done in your leadership?
Oh, there's so many times. It's every minute, isn't it? When being aware of other people and giving other people opportunities. One of the ones that very, very recent for me, one of our board members, a First Nations lady, Amanda Healy, and she reminded me, because I'm quite quick. I'm a quick person. I'm sharp, I'm into it, I get things done. You know, bang, bang, bang. Make the most of every day, seize the day. And Amanda said to me, you know what, Sally? Everybody else isn't as quick as you. There's times that we need silence so we can all have a think. And she said, First Nations people in particular. And that was just really powerful to me. So it doesn't matter where that impetus comes from. So now I can count people in that think differently and function differently to me from that lovely reminder that I had. Yeah, it's everywhere, isn't it? Little clues are everywhere. And it's just our ability to stop and think and take that feedback in. Yeah.
Sally, hey.
Yes. Hi.
Thank you. Although not thank you for the finger things. Yeah, I have to. Yeah.
Don't fit in the cat. Don't worry, Ned. Look at mine.
It's all right. There's a few parts of me that don't fit in the category, so that's fine. This is probably you wanted to agitate, right? So this is a bit of an agitation. This whole feminism has gone too far sentiment, to me, rings very closely to this is reverse racism. We're getting too politically correct, everybody wants to be gay because it's cool, all of these sorts of sentiments, where there's a correction and there has to be an overcorrection to then have the equality established. Do you think it sets a dangerous precedent to then start to say, or to link, say, male suicide rates with feminism? Because, I don't know, speaking on behalf of myself, feminism isn't about women being more important or better. It's about everybody being equal. I just wanted to, because I find that to be a dangerous kind of link.
Yes, I did throw some bombs in, didn't I? I did, and that was deliberately threw it in, because every day in our lives we have to stop and think, don't we? Every day, and we have to think, how do we take people with us? And that's very, very hard. And I'm saying that's research. It's not my view or whatever. So that was research that's come out of the Global Institute. Now, one of the things that all of us have to do is think, is my message being received? Isn't it? So if we just keep pushing our messages on someone else and they're going the opposite direction, whose accountability is it? It's always your own. We've always got to take accountability. So we think to ourselves, what do I have to do differently for that person to get the message going forward? And that's probably what Julia Gillard's coming up with. She's saying, be careful, because we're going like this, as you said, over. What do we have to do to come back to the position that we want to get into? Yeah. Yeah. And it's, Australian hockey player. We have to overtrain, so we go to the Olympics training to perform perfectly. So I get the overdoing it. There's absolutely no doubt. But every day we have to think, how do we massage this message to get to the outcome that we want? And that's, if you really read all of Julia Gillard's messaging, that's where she's coming from as well. Yeah. The other thing too, and Emma and I were having a little bit of a chat about it before, the next generation coming through, we know mental health rates, especially in that Gen Z's not looking flash. And we're talking all the time about doomsday. So how do we shift that message around that this is wonderful, we're agitating, we're growing as a community, and it's going to be good in the end. Yeah. Yeah. So instead of just going hard on every topic. Heavy stuff. One more. I told you I'm going to pick on you. Anyone? Look at everyone drop their heads down. All right, I'm not going to put pressure on them. Oh, here we go. Now.
Oh gosh.
Hello.
Thank you. I don't even know where I'm going to go with this question, but when you were talking about you spoke man and when that guy hugged you and said, "Oh,
She's one of us. Yeah.
It seems that as a woman, sometimes that is coming from other females and female leaders, and I guess, have you had experience with other females talking man, speaking man, and what would be your advice to kind of, I guess, shut down those kind of moments or conversations or uncomfortable situations?
Well, guys.
And I do that all the time.
Me too. A sporty girl. How you going, guys? Guys, come in. That's speaking man, isn't it? Yeah, and you just have to stop and check yourself all the time. Yeah, so I do. And I'm really learning every day. Yeah. Have you seen Meryl Streep talk about the world's spoken man? She's priceless. Just search it up. She's funny about it. Yeah. Anyway, I shall wrap it up there. Thank you very much for having me. Good on you for the journeys you're doing. Lovely to meet you all.